Hi everyone, welcome back. We appreciate your participation. We have a new and intriguing story to present to you today, so let us commence. I am Alex, and this narrative recounts how I discovered, through difficult experience, that those we cherish most may undervalue us until it is too late. Emily and I encountered each other in our early 20s. At that time, we were inseparable, a pair that others observed and remarked, indeed, they are destined for one another. Our relationship was characterized by an inherent ease. Nocturnal excursions, profound dialogues, merely two individuals entirely engrossed in one another. Our marriage felt appropriate at the time. We harbored significant aspirations. Traveling, establishing a life together, and potentially initiating a family in the future. For a period, all was flawless. However, circumstances arise. I was establishing my business from inception, dedicating extensive hours and making sacrifices. Regardless of my increasing busyness, Emily remained my foremost focus. I dedicated time to her through modest surprises, spontaneous date nights, or simply engaging in conversation after a long day. I consistently ensured she understood her significance. Initially, she valued it. She was proud of me, encouraging, and my foremost advocate. However, she gradually began to transform. Initially, it involved minor grievances, expressing a need for increased personal time and indicating a need for self-focus. I genuinely endorsed that. Everyone requires room for development. However, it subsequently transformed into something different. She began discussing prioritizing herself. Initially, I interpreted her reference to self-care as engaging in activities such as exercising, reading more, and pursuing endeavors that brought her joy. However, that was not her intended meaning. Her true intention was to pursue her desires without concern for the impact on our marriage. She ceased her efforts. She was indifferent to our plans. She scarcely inquired about my day. Nevertheless, she anticipated that I would regard her as the most significant individual in the world. It appeared she desired all the advantages of marriage without the responsibilities of being a wife. Initially, I reassured myself that this was merely a challenging phase. Every marriage experiences fluctuations, correct? As a devoted husband, I endeavored with greater effort. I minimized conflicts to the greatest extent possible. When anything disturbs me, I will initially attempt to discuss it. However, if the situation escalates rather than resolves, I will suppress my feelings instead of engaging in an argument. I began to astonish her with presents, small items I knew she appreciated, such as flowers, perfume, and even the luxurious handbag she had coveted for months. Any gesture to convey my continued affection and presence. However, none of it had any impact. She occasionally expressed gratitude, however it lacked genuine sentiment. No authentic enthusiasm, no gratitude, merely a perfunctory smile before she transitioned to another activity, typically her phone. Upon hearing her express the necessity for distance to rediscover herself, I initially refrained from questioning it. I considered that she might simply be assessing the situation. I provided her with the requested room. I ceased attempting to draw her near. I permitted her increased freedom, allowing her to enjoy nights out and engage in activities she deemed necessary. However, months later, this remains unhelpful. She increasingly exhibited self-absorption, perceiving herself as the protagonist in a narrative where I was merely a secondary character, existing solely to serve her rather than to receive her affection. She began to behave as like she merited superior treatment, as if she were compromising by being with me. Frankly, that was painful. I observed the woman I loved gradually distance herself, as she persuaded herself that she could find a superior partner. When you love an individual who does not appreciate you, it disturbs your mental state. You begin to doubt yourself, contemplating whether they may be correct. Perhaps you lack sufficient capability. Perhaps you are the issue. I spent numerous nights gazing at the ceiling, attempting to discern what had altered. What was my error? When did I cease to be sufficient for her? However, I inherently recognized the truth. No matter my affection for her, I was unable to rescue someone unwilling to be rescued. I was uncertain how much longer I could feign that everything was satisfactory. Subsequently, there arrived a singular night that transformed everything. I waited for hours, fixated on the clock, attuned to the sound of passing cars outside. This was hardly the first occasion Emily returned home late, however this particular night felt distinct. Upon hearing the door open, I breathed, attempting to stabilize my emotions. I wished to avoid contention. I was too fatigued for another confrontation. She entered, faltering slightly. The odor of alcohol assailed me before I even turned to face her. She scarcely recognized my presence, flinging her luggage onto the couch and removing her shoes with a kick. I suppressed my frustration and inquired, "Emily, are you aware of your actions? This issue transcends only arriving home late, you are alienating me. I have exercised patience, yet you no longer comport yourself as a married woman." She expressed her disdain as if I had just conveyed the most absurd statement imaginable. Subsequently, she chuckled with a languid smirk. She derisively scoffed. "Do you believe I require your presence? Do you genuinely believe you possess exceptional qualities? A multitude of males desire me. If you depart, I will substitute you the next day." I experienced a constriction in my chest, however I concealed it. She had not completed her task. She assumed an upright posture. "I refuse to adhere to your regulations any longer. I refuse to adhere to anyone's regulations any more. This is my existence, and neither you nor society will dictate how I should live it. I am currently in my baby girl phase, Alex. Either confront the situation or abstain from engagement." That was all. That was the moment of realization. I had misplaced her. Alternatively, she may have lost me. I refrained from arguing. I did not raise my voice. I did not implore her to comprehend rationale. What was the purpose? She had already determined her desired identity, which was not the lady I had wed. I undertook the sole remaining course of action. I will permit her to pursue the life she desires, and I will depart. The following morning, I conducted a search and contacted the most reputable divorce attorney in the area. I had no desire to prolong matters or complicate her life. I desired a definitive separation. The legal proceedings progressed rapidly. Due to the absence of children and my reluctance to dispute over furnishings or joint bank accounts, matters were resolved with minimal contention. I was indifferent to notions of fairness or unfairness. I merely sought an exit. I failed to attend the final meeting. I entrusted all matters to my attorney. Upon the completion of the signatures, I executed precisely what I had vowed to accomplish. I vanished. There are no calls. No messages. Avoid lengthy emotional communications. I was absent. Initially, she appeared indifferent. She appeared to be relieved, if anything. She persuaded herself that this was her new beginning, her opportunity to attain liberation at last. I observed fragments of it on social media. Images of her socializing with pals, beverages in hand, reveling as if commemorating a triumph. Her posts contained captions regarding new beginnings and self-worth. For a period, it appeared that she had progressed without a moment's reflection. She re-entered the dating scene almost quickly. Moreover, numerous males were keen to amuse her. However, a change was evident today. She was not the esteemed individual she believed herself to be. Indeed, she garnered attention, however it was not of the nature she had anticipated. The men pursuing her sought only fleeting pleasure, not a serious commitment. And those who were prepared for a meaningful commitment? They did not embody the qualities she desired in men. I did not observe it directly, but I received reports about it. She rapidly transitioned between relationships, moving from one partner to another, without establishing anything enduring. They departed sequentially. The attention she had previously flourished upon began to feel vacuous and insignificant. Gradually, the confidence she formerly shown began to deteriorate. She was alone for the first time. Not by volition, not for the purpose of self-exploration, but due to her rejection of the sole individual who genuinely cared for her. By what means did I ascertain this? Recall that we had mutual acquaintances who continue to communicate with her. What about me? I did not glance back. Following the divorce, I faced a decision. I could have entered another relationship in search of someone to occupy the emptiness. I could have immersed myself in trivial liaisons, diversions, and ephemeral exhilarations. However, I recognized that this was not the solution, nor was it my desire. I had invested excessive time in a marriage where I remained unacknowledged. It was now time to select myself. Consequently, I proceeded to do so. I immersed myself in my business as a means of reconstruction. I invested my efforts in enhancing and developing what I had established from the ground up. Employment had transcended its conventional boundaries. It served as a reminder of my capabilities and my purpose beyond being a spouse. Gradually, I began to observe outcomes. My enterprise flourished in ways I never anticipated. For the first time in an extended period, I sensed that I had regained control over my life. I concurrently prioritized my physical and mental well-being. I attended the gym to regain my strength. I began to focus on improving my diet, enhancing my sleep quality, and attending to my self-care, aspects I had overlooked for years. I have acknowledged that certain individuals will never value you, regardless of the extent of your contributions. I declined to accept anything that failed to contribute genuine worth to my life. I refused to allow loneliness to deceive me into reverting to familiarity or pursuing unsuitable relationships. I acquired the ability to be solitary without experiencing loneliness. I grew at ease in my own presence, a sensation I had not experienced in quite some time. I gradually thrived. Ultimately, that was my most significant triumph. Years had elapsed since I last encountered Emily. On that day, I was merely conducting errands, acquiring many items from a department shop when the incident occurred. I rounded a corner, and there she stood. Emily, hardly a few feet away, clutched a shopping bag and gazed at me as though she had encountered a specter. For a moment, I nearly failed to identify her. She remained aesthetically pleasing. She consistently attended to her looks. Her gaze scrutinized me. Alexander. She ultimately articulated her thoughts, her tone uncertain and even tentative. I acquiesced, presenting a courteous grin. Greetings, Emily. It has been some while. She emitted a hesitant laugh while securing a strand of hair behind her ear. Your appearance has changed significantly. I expressed indifference by shrugging. Indeed, life has been favorable. She initiated inquiries, endeavoring to sustain the dialogue. How have you fared? What activities have you engaged in recently? I responded nonchalantly, providing minimal information and maintaining a light tone. I was not impolite, however I did not provide her with what she anticipated. I was unaware of her thoughts. Following several additional minutes of casual conversation, she grinned uncertainly. Perhaps we might reconvene at a later date. I reciprocated the smile. Indeed, perhaps. I was aware that we would not, as that chapter of my life had concluded. Days subsequent to that event, she initiated contact. It commenced with an unpretentious message, one of those informal "it was a pleasure to see you the other day." I paused before replying, my fingers suspended above the keyboard. Contrary to my better judgment, I responded. The dialogue gradually intensified from that point forth. No profundity, no sentimentality, merely casual conversation. Reconnecting, nostalgia infiltrating, occupying the voids once filled with rage and contempt. In the ensuing weeks, we communicated intermittently via text. She would dispatch an arbitrary message regarding something that evoked thoughts of me. Nonetheless, I could not refute it. The emotions persisted. One does not abruptly cease to love another individual. However, I began to see that love alone was insufficient. Is there a trust? That has long since passed. One evening, she proposed that we convene. Merely dinner, solely for conversation. A portion of me desired to acquiesce. I must confess, I was enticed. However, I paused and posed a question I had been evading throughout this period. What was the purpose? What was I genuinely seeking? A formal apology? A request for clarification? An opportunity to rectify that which was irreparably damaged? Negative. Inherently, I was aware of the reality. I did not require her to provide me with closure. I had to provide it for myself. I declined. Neither with resentment nor with fury. In a straightforward manner, I believe that is not a prudent plan. I took a considerable amount of time to acknowledge my brokenness. I was reluctant to acknowledge it, but Emily had inflicted greater harm upon me than I had comprehended. Not solely due of her departure, but also because of the emotions she evoked in me prior to it. Inadequate. Interchangeable. As though I were perpetually inadequate. Initially, I reassured myself that I was well. I concentrated on my business, increased my physical activity, and associated with pals. Despite my efforts to divert my attention, an unrelenting weight persisted in my chest. I recognized that if I did not confront it, it would permeate every aspect of my existence. I undertook an action I never anticipated performing. I attended treatment. Initially, it felt peculiar. Engaged in conversation with an unfamiliar individual about matters I had concealed for years. However, week after week, I began to perceive matters with greater clarity. I was not foolish for loving Emily. I was not weak for attempting to preserve my marriage. I was merely an individual who entrusted his affections to an unsuitable partner. That was not my failure, it was merely a lesson I needed to acquire. Recovery was not immediate. It was not a matter of awakening one day and abruptly experiencing liberation. It pertained to the minor instances. I severed all ties with Emily. No further messages, no additional pleasantries, no more hypotheticals. I concluded that my narrative with her had reached its end. Prior to deleting her number, I dispatched one final message. Neither from rage nor from malice. Only the veracity. I extend my best wishes to you. In retrospect, I believe that the one method to progress from someone who caused you pain was to seek retribution. To demonstrate to them that they have forfeited something of significance. However, I came to a realization along the process. Revenge constitutes a squander of energy. Occasionally. The most effective form of retribution is not retribution itself. It entails progressing, becoming into the optimal form of oneself, and allowing them to observe from afar. That, my friends, is precisely what I accomplished. That concludes today's narrative. We welcome your thoughts in the comments section. Have you ever encountered a situation of this nature? What was your approach to managing it? If you appreciated this, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for other real-life narratives. Until we meet again, take care.